banded overhead hold with hamstring march. So I have my band wrapped around a kettlebell. You can use a squat rack. You just want to make sure that it is something that will not move. This is a pretty heavy kettlebell and I kind of tested it out. You just don't want to use anything that could possibly like fall on your head, okay? So you're going to loop your band around an extremely sturdy or immovable object. Now from here, we're going to have the band and we are going to pull it straight above our head. You want to make sure that you have a good amount of resistance on the band. I don't want to see any kind of like loops or slack in the system right here. So you're going to pull the band to where your wrists are right over your shoulders. Now, the next thing we want to think about here is as we're in this position and we haven't even raised our hips up yet, we want to make sure that we get our ribs down, okay? So a lot of times when we're in, especially this overhead position right here, or sometimes even in this amount of shoulder flexion, we have a tendency to really kind of flare these ribs. So we want to make sure in this position, long exhale, and you should feel the ribs melt down the side of your body. Ribs melt down, deep core comes up. So now we've got our resistance, we've got our core on. Next thing we want to make sure is that we have the pelvis rolled gently towards the rib cage. We're not squeezing the butt, okay? There's no part that the glute needs to do right now whatsoever. Those glutes should be super nice and soft. Next thing that's going to happen, our toes are going to come gently up off the ground and you're going to start pulling on your heels. When you pull on your heels, you're going to feel the back of your legs tighten up. Those are your hamstrings and we want those. We need those, okay? So you're pulling on the heels, pelvis is tilted up towards your rib cage. This is really important. We need the pelvis to stay in this posterior orientation so that we're not getting more extension and kind of feeling crunchy right here in the low back, okay? So hamstrings are on, ribs are down, and I've got my band right here. Now, next thing I'm gonna do is continue to pull back on the heels and I'm gonna raise my hips up. Again, I don't need to squeeze my glutes to do this, okay? I should be able to get my hips to raise up without having to clench my glutes. From here, I'm going to lift one leg at a time. My goal is to not rock side to side as I'm lifting my other leg. I want to make sure I keep pulling back on the heel as I lift the other leg, and I want my hips to stay as stable as possible. Really thinking about ribs down and proximal hamstrings the whole entire time. You should feel your core and your hamstrings lit up by the end of this. If you don't, something is not going right. We can make this harder if you need to by walking the legs out more. This is going to increase our lever. It's going to be a lot more work for the hamstrings. We can also make this harder by extending the arms back more. We want to make sure that we're not walking the legs out or extending the arms back more at the sake of our form. So you need to make sure you can keep that posterior tilt even if you're walking your legs out more. And we want to make sure that you can keep those ribs down even if you are extending your arms back more. All right, so that is your banded overhead reach with hamstring march. Hope you like it as much as I do.